Hey friends, welcome back to the show. I'm very excited about our guest. He is a top producing realtor here in Las Vegas. He's a real estate investor. I like to say he's one of my big TikTok influencers as well. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about all things real estate investing. We're going to talk about also social media and branding. And so welcome to the show, JT Jansen Taylor.
Wow, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
That sounded pretty cool.
You like that?
The introduction.
Yes. Well, you are definitely a celeb in my eyes. And I want to take a little bit of credit for that, but we'll jump into that a little bit later on in the show. So just start off by just introducing who you are. I know you've been in the business a little while. Tell us how long you've been in the business. What got you here?
Well, I've been in the business since 2002 as a lender and as a realtor since 2003. So I just hit my 21-year mark. I think it was in April.
Wow. So you were a lender first
Yep.
and then became?
Yeah, I became a loan officer for about a year, and then it took me a few tries to get my real estate license, but then I got my license about a year later.
What made you transition? Were you just not into the lending side, or?
No, I am, but the guy that got me in the business, he actually said, dude, you got to do both sides to be, more lucrative. And he talked me into get my real estate license. And then once I got that, I kind of slowly phased out on the loans. I don't do those quite as much.
Yeah. And so you're pretty much like 90% real estate, would you say?
Probably 97 real estate.
97% real estate. And for, so 2003, you said you got, so that's like right as we were heading into the crash. Is that when you got in?
Well, I got in the boom.
In the boom, okay.
And then the crash 4 or 5 years later.
Gotcha. And so you've seen sort of two different housing, I don't want to say crises, but definitely two different markets, or a few markets, right, coming into the industry and out.
Yeah, it's been a few hills and leaps and bounds for sure.
And what do you think has kept you like in the industry?
What else if I go work construction, I'm gonna work my butt off and make $50,000 a year, or I can make 3, 4, 5 times that if I work my butt off in real estate, and it's a lot easier to go show a house and negotiate for a client than to go dig ditches for 8 to 10 hours a day, or not dig ditches, or pour concrete, whatever. It's much easier to dress like this as opposed to with a lunch pail and work my butt off. It's a good workout, but it's a lot. It's them guys work hard.
You still get into the heat though, because you're out showing homes. What percentage of business is buying and what percentage is listing for you?
Mine is usually 50-50. It's almost always even 50-50.
Okay.
Half, maybe, 60-40 occasionally, but it's pretty even.
Yeah. Even as you started, were you always 50-50?
I'm sure at the beginning it was more buyers and then eventually got more into listings. But yeah, from day one, all the years I can remember, it was always pretty close to being even.
Yeah.
No crazy 80-20 like that.
What would you say I was going to ask you what you see to be the difference between pre-COVID and now, but since you were in pre-housing crisis to today, what do you see as the biggest difference in our market, in the real estate industry?
As for the market itself, well, as a realtor, I'll say this, like the strategy-wise, like photos are huge. I always tell people we use professional photographers. Back then we didn't. We all had our little Sony camera. And then obviously after that became cell phones, which are really good photos, but to hire professionals the way to go. So that's probably one of the biggest things I've seen, the quality of that stuff. And obviously with AI coming in, that's huge. But business-wise, it's always been similar. Obviously the MLS has changed, different companies and then different lock boxes have changed over time. But obviously it's just everything's more I don't know if the word streamlined right, because everything's more hands-on and Bluetooth and wireless and computers, as opposed to when I first got into it, it wasn't like that. I didn't get into it. Before I got into it, they said the MLS was like a catalog.
Yeah.
I already had the computer when I got into it,
okay.
But it's just weird. Like even that stuff was a little bit outdated. Now everything's so real time and goes to all these websites. So I think that was probably the most fascinating thing, is the way it changed to the internet. It just kind of took off. Technology, correct.
So you didn't have the MLS books. You actually had the computer, to pretty much what you have today, then, where you can kind of search online.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Where the MLS used to be and even street navigation used to be different.
Yeah,
right?
You're right. So the description on the MLS, if they didn't do it accurately, you're driving around looking.
Yeah.
Now you don't even look at the directions. You just punch in the address and you show up at the house 20 minutes later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy what technology has done for just not industry, but also just for our lives in general, right? One of the things as far as real estate for me in working with you, because you and I are partners in real estate. I do some of your lending, and of course you are on the real estate side of it. I see you as a very you're very thorough and very knowledgeable in Las Vegas. And I thought you were native Las Vegan, but you're not. You actually were born in Washington?
Yeah, I was actually born in a little town north of Seattle towards the Canadian border called well, actually, I was born in Mount Vernon. Always thought I was born in Cedar Woolley, which is where I grew up.
Okay.
But I didn't know until I looked at my birth certificate about 4 years ago. I'm like, what? Mount Vernon? Because that's the little town next door to me. I had no idea, but I grew up in Cedar Woolley, Washington, which, like I said, it's about an hour north of Seattle and about an hour south of Vancouver, Canada. So that's where I was born. I moved to Vegas, and I was first grade, so I think I was 6 or 7.
Gotcha. So family moved you here.
Correct. Yeah, I probably had 3 months of school left in my first grade year, and I was like, "Holy shit, this summer's hot."
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
yeah, and so you've seen growth in Las Vegas then, just exponential growth, right? What do you think has been for you has been the most significant change since being here, what, 40-ish years?
yeah, it is amazing how far. Like we used to ride quads back then. You couldn't go past Craig Road. And now there's multiple subdivision master plan communities
Yeah.
past Craig Road, but we used to go riding quads on Jones and Craig Road, go out there and shoot guns, when we're like in our 20s. Everybody go out there shooting. Now it's just crazy that there's 8-10 more miles north of master plan communities and subdivisions. It's just, these maps you see that, every 5 years, how big it's gotten. I've seen that real time, especially out in the north, because that's where I kind of grew up.
Yeah.
So I lived out that way as I got older, and it's amazing how much it's out there now.
And do you think that that's helped you as a realtor, from whether it's referral based or whether it's just knowing the communities and the areas of Las Vegas because you've lived here so long?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's just because you kind of see, you hear about different areas, you see the growth, you see, unfortunately, some stuff that happens in other areas. I think it definitely helps.
Yeah. And majority of your business, is it referral
Almost all my business is referral.
from beginning, or did it start off?
Yeah, there's clients now that there's a family that I've been working with probably for 15, 16 years. I've probably sold everybody in the family houses 2-3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I think people they underestimate the lifetime value of a client, right? So you just mentioned, so let's say you probably helped the parents, so to speak, right? And now you're saying you're helping their children to purchase homes today, and then maybe aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters and such. Is that what that's looked like for you?
Yeah, exactly. It started with the parents, and I've sold the brother-in-law, sister-in-law, cousins. I probably did 25 transactions
Just
for
with
this
them?
certain family over the last 15 years.
Wow. And do you do anything, if I were a realtor listening to this today, what have you done to maintain that relationship? Is there marketing? Is it database management?
Yeah, and staying in front of them, reaching out to them a couple times a year, sometimes even more. And also, I think the biggest thing is being the source of the source. When they call me, hey, do you know a painter? Here's 3 painters. Hey, do you know a plumber? Hey, I know these 3 guys. Check them out. So every time they need something, they call me. So I'm always in their thought of their mind, and they always think about me, hey, you can't figure this out. Let's call Jansen. He might know somebody. And I think that's probably the biggest benefit I get from doing that. Is, of course, over 20 years of being a realtor, you build a lot of relations with different contractors, handymen, stuff like that. So when people call me, I always have a little index of people, and I always tell them, hey, get 3 quotes, but here's the 3 people I would recommend,
Yeah.
or that I know.
Yeah.
And that's been huge, because then people always think, hey, call Jansen. Oh, you don't know me? Call Jansen. You know a photographer? Call Jansen. Pretty much anything from A to Z.
Well, and you're also really good at the relationship building aspect of it too. I think that, even though you look, you're big and tall and such, like you're like just a genuinely great guy. And I feel like the relationship aspect of it for you have a tendency to just be so welcoming to everybody. And so I can see that being easy. And then of course, if you've been here in the industry for so long, or here in Las Vegas so long, that you've created a great database for that. I know I personally call you all the time, like, hey, I need somebody who's going to do my flooring, or I need somebody who's going to clean my carpets, or whatever the case is. And you're like, here, I got this guy. Here, I got this guy. I got a guy. So.
Were you trying to say I'm a teddy bear?
Yeah.
No, just joking. Yeah, no, that's exactly. That's, it's just, and I tell my people always ask me, hey, can you refer me clients? I said, listen, if you don't do a good job and I get complaints, I'm not going to refer you,
Yeah.
because it burns a bridge because then people come back on me. But I always, like, I tell my clients, like, for your flooring guy, I said, listen, this is a guy, he's been great to me. Get a couple quotes, talk to a different couple people, but
Yeah.
that's easy to build relationships, and it's a good way to help people out because who wants to go pay a major contractor to do a small flooring job? Sometimes it's just a guy that can come and knock out a room in an afternoon. That's all you need. You don't need to go call the huge contractor down the street who's going to charge you a tremendous amount of money,
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it nowadays, it's all by referral anyways, right? And so you obviously your clients think highly of you and trust obviously the purchase of the home. Why wouldn't they take it to the next step in trusting you with the people that you've actually referred, one or two, three people, whatever, for flooring or photography or whatever it may be. And I think it's important. I don't think a lot of realtors actually realize the importance of having that database of people because, to your point, they look at you for everything. They come to you for everything. Doesn't even matter if it's real estate related, right? It's about the home. And they think of, oh, I just got to call Jansen. And
Yeah.
so they'll think of you when they need to sell a house. They'll think of you when they need to get their flooring done, plumbing done, whatever the case may be. So I think that's great. I don't think a lot of people actually, I know a lot of realtors who don't have that exclusive of a database. So that's great. What would you say to a realtor today who's considering getting into the market?
Woo. A lot of change is coming up, but change is good,
Yeah.
right? It's a little scary at first, but change is good. I would say the biggest probably takeaway or the biggest advice I would give them, you just got to go. You can't be in it halfway, 1 foot, one out. You got to be all in or not. It's just you'll get gobbled up. It's not cheap to have your license between all the fees, everything you pay. So when I first got into it, you can do 1 or 2 deals a year and still do just as a side gig. But that's changing. It's you're gonna have to be full go. And I tell people it's hard because if you have a day job, you can't afford just to become a full-time realtor day one.
Mhm.
It takes a while. There's very few people who could become successful in their first 6 months. Sometimes it takes 2-3 years to even close their first transaction. So I would say just you got to full go on it or not, but don't quit your day job or work nights, whatever you can do, because you got to keep that income coming. But you can't just be lollygagging and saying, hey, I'm just doing the weekends for family and friends. It's too expensive to keep all your license and all the education you got to do each year to be in it just halfway,
Yeah. When you started, did you have a full-time job
Yeah.
and then you transition in? Okay. So what were you doing before real estate?
I was a construction worker.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's where
Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. And so eventually you got to a point where the real estate income was superseding your construction income. And so that was what made you transition?
Yes, so it's really weird. I bought my house from the guy. His name's Al Hernandez, a great guy. I called him back about 9-10 months later to refinance it because rates went down a little bit. And he's like, so I did the refinance for me. Then I referred him like 2 other people because knowing a lot of people in construction. And he calls me like, hey, Jansen, why don't you get your lending license? Back then you didn't really have to do an education. People just kind of vouched for you back then. So he kind of got me into it. So I was a construction worker in the laborers union, working that and doing the loans on the side with him. Pretty much I would just refer him to people and he'd give me a little kickback. And then I started thinking, I was like, man, I kind of like this. So I started going to his office after work in my work boots. I would sometimes change in the parking lot, put on some jeans or dress pants and a shirt, but I'd still have the construction smell in my work truck. And that's how I slowly became a realtor. And when I got my real estate license, maybe like a year later, and then at that point I was already pretty much full-time. I was probably a full-time lender for about a year. Then I got my real estate license. But yeah, it was just easier than doing construction.
Yeah.
At the time, the rates were a little bit lower. So a lot of people I knew were refinancing. I was at the age, I was probably my mid-20s, 25, 26. Everybody I knew was buying houses. So it just was a good timing for me. And back then, there wasn't that many realtors or lenders. I would say maybe 3,000 realtors back then. There's like 17,000 now. So I just kind of got a good time. And I enjoyed doing it. And I was like, man, this is so much better than working my butt off for 8-10 hours a day in the sun to get out and show houses. And it's, of course, the stress part, look at my hair and my gray hair, but it's so much easier than going digging ditches and for 40 hours a week and pretty much just burying yourself because it's hard work. I was like, man, this is so much easier and funner.
So did you join a team, or did you just come on in and like, I'm going to do this?
Well, I kind of went under the guy Al Hernandez. I was kind of under
Okay.
his umbrella. I guess it was kind of like a team back then. But and he gave me an office because I became the top producer within like a year in his office.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know today, like I just saw you post that you are number 6 in your company today of 700. So you've always been a top producer. What's been the driving force behind that for you?
I think the driving force just because I enjoy doing it. I enjoy helping people. It's the American dream. So I think that's the driving force is to help these people because these people need a house or need to sell a house. I shoot them straight. I tell them exactly the way it's going to go. Obviously, everything doesn't go smooth, but I let them know the fees, all that up front, so they know me, they trust me. At the end, there's no surprises, and it's just helping people get the transaction done. If it's either a listing or a purchase, it's just helping them get what they need to the finish line.
And do you go out so for your buyer's agent, or as a buyer's agent, are you out there personally showing, or do you have a team that's doing that, dedicated to doing that for you?
No, I show all homes. Unless I'm out of town for some reason, I do have somebody who will show some houses for me occasionally, but I do 98% of my work.
Okay. That's at TC. Do you have a TC?
I do have a TC. She
Okay.
does help with the back end stuff, but I write all the requests for repairs. I do all that stuff, all the addendums, all the counter offers, any of the negotiating, the showing the houses, the listing appointments, all me.
Wow. So you
Yeah.
are a busy guy. So tell me, let's talk a little bit about NAR. So the NAR settlement. I know whenever this podcast rolls out, who knows the timing? Because I think they've already extended the time frame once, right?
Yep.
We started at July 1st, and now it's mid-August?
Yep.
Mid-August for rollout. How do you think it's going to affect you, or is it going to affect you in your business?
I don't think it's necessarily going to affect me. I think it's going to affect some agents. The ones that are, like I said, kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're not full time and they don't want to do it full time. I think it's going to affect them probably the most. And I don't get too worked up on it because, again, it's already been extended. Now I just heard the Department of Justice is doing their own investigating on it. They're not sure. They don't necessarily want to accept the the settlement or whatever. So we'll see what's going to happen. But I don't really get too worked up on it because it's not even final yet. It's just like you see something on the news, you get all wrapped up, and then a couple of days later you find out, well, that's not the whole story. There's other sides to it. So I'm kind of waiting for everything to come out. I think it's going to change our business a little bit, and I think it probably in the long run it could be better for us.
Yeah. How do you think it's going to change the business for you?
Well, I think there's going to be less realtors. I think some realtors are going to probably not be able to do this business if they don't hold value, if they don't bring value to the table with that client, that they're going to probably be out of the business. So I think there'll be less realtors, and we're still going to have, I think, the same amount of transactions.
Yeah.
So it's just the pie will be less pieces to the pie.
Yeah. I hear a lot from agents that it's value based. Like this is really going to shift and require agents to show your value. But if you've already been doing that, then it shouldn't be a shift. So you obviously do, and I know you do that just based on conversations that I have with our clients, but creation of the value that you have for both, I think, buyer side, but then even on your selling side, it's really to help them understand what the impact is. Because I hear some sellers are like, well, I don't have to pay the buyer's agent anymore, right? How are you going to handle that? Or have you thought through that at all?
Well, I think the biggest take obviously is, we're not supposed to use the word commission.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell the way I'm going to probably approach it, or I will approach it, is tell my sellers, hey, if you offer some kind of fee to the buyer's agent, you're going to get more buyers in your door, and you're probably going to get a higher offer. So essentially, you offer 0 to the side, you're going to probably get less offers and less buyers, which essentially is going to get you less net. Yeah. So you may give, let's just say, 10 grand to the other to pay that agent, and you're probably going to net 12, 14 grand more for your house in the long run because you're going to have hopefully multiple offers or offers right away, and you're going to get more out at the end of the day. You're going to net more when the closing time comes. Yeah, if you give something, not commission, right? If whatever they're going to make us call it, but if you offer some kind of a fee, it's going to help you in the long run because you're going to get more offers and more buyers in that door.
That's good. Have you heard any sellers or buyers ask a lot questions about NAR yet, or?
Yeah, at first, when it first came out, what, like a month or 2 months ago, whenever it was, when it came in the paper and the internet, some people called me right away, and I was a little surprised. We knew eventually it was going to probably come
Yeah.
to this, but we thought it was going to be a couple of years down the road. So I was a little surprised when I heard it from somebody else. I was like, what? And I looked it up, and sure enough, but I just told them, let's see what happens. It's a long ways to go. It's just like anything else with court, it takes a long time to get through the system, and then when it's done, we're gonna figure it out and be ready to go. But I'm not too worried about it.
That's good. And since you've been in the industry so long, the 21 years, I mean, you went through foreclosures, went through short sales, right? And then the COVID aspect of it. And you've made it top producing through all of that, right? So you've been able to figure out how to pivot and shift your business. A lot of it, I'm assuming, is just because you're like, I'm just going to stay focused on serving and helping my clients, right?
Yes, correct. That's you hold value for your clients, and they will come back. And you're right. I've seen it all. I remember when the foreclosures happened. You would show up to a house and there were squatters in there sometimes, or the
Yeah.
houses were full of furniture, but there was no power for 3 months, stunk heck up, real bad. Like, I'm pretty sure if we looked around, there's probably a dead animal in there because the fridge still had food in it.
Oh,
And that was pretty crazy. And you didn't
yeah.
know what, every time. And back then, again, photos weren't as popular. So they only have one photo of the front of the house. And they do usually have the description, hey, just an FYI, this house had some stuff still being moved out. Well, obviously the house has been with no power for 4 months. I think what's there is there. Tell buyer,
Yeah.
hey, you're about to worry about taking this stuff out because there was a fridge, couches, clothes everywhere. That was some crazy times, I remember, but I think this time will be fine too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you just stay focused on the business, right? And just doing the
Correct.
business. Yeah.
What I can control.
Right. Well, so tell me a little bit about your like marketing efforts, and I mean, we can dive into your TikTok, and because for me, I feel like you're my only celebrity that I know that has hit 1 million views. We talked in the beginning. I feel like that came out of one of my classes where you were like, I don't know how to do video. I want to get into TikTok. And then boom, you'd get on TikTok, and like 2 weeks later, you're sending me this text like, check this out. It's at like, I think it was a 10,000 views. And now I just looked at it the other day and it's over 1 million in views.
Yeah, so I had a few, and actually, you were one of the ones who talked me into doing it. You and V were like, "You got to do it." And I was like, "I don't like the way it sounds. I don't, Facebook. I just post a picture and a meme. With TikTok, you kind of got to put yourself out there." And I hated it, but yeah, probably about my first 3 months. It was actually a Father's Day one that did pretty well. It was the first one that kind of went viral. It got like I think it's like at 480,000 views now. And that one kind of got it started. And then I started doing, that was a joke one that I started doing a little bit of real estate one. And then the one that really took off for me, like got me a lot of or followers, was the one about refinancing your house, or not refinance, excuse me, paying your house off in 7 years less. I remember went over the
Yeah.
numbers with you to
Yeah.
make sure it's correct. And that one probably got me about 6,500 followers.
Wow.
It was the most amazing thing to see it go viral like that. Like every time I looked, they have this little, I forgot what it was. This little thing, it tells you, okay, you got 100 new followers. And it only goes up to 99.
Wow.
So like every 3 minutes, I would update it, it'd be full again. It was
Wow.
crazy. It went on for like 3 days straight. I just had all these followers from that one post. And it got like, I can't remember, like 17,000 shares or something. It was bananas. I couldn't believe it. And I was new to TikTok. I was only doing it for probably about 5-6 months at that point, and it just went crazy.
Well, and so did you have somebody who helped you through that? Did you have a marketing manager or social media manager or something?
No, I'm a one-man show.
You're one man, like in everything.
Everything's me, besides my TC. Yeah.
So how did you come up with the idea? How did you, you created that in your own head, the visual aspect of it, or?
Yeah, I just thought it was, again, to bring value to people. Always ask me, hey, I want to refinance to 15 years. And sometimes you don't have to, right? Just pay a little extra to the principal.
Yeah.
It will get your mortgage paid off a little bit quicker, not necessarily 15 years quicker, but it will pay down your principal, and it will, in the long run, you're going to knock off 6-7 years. So again, just wanted to bring value to people, so people can say, hey, this realtor kind of knows what he's doing. They'd start following me. Maybe they'll refer me to somebody one day, or maybe they'll buy from me if they're here in Vegas. So I just want to add value to these posts. Because I see other realtors doing little stuff about putting their signs up, but how's that putting How's that
Yeah.
adding value? I wanted
Yeah.
to teach these people something, especially young people who never bought a house. I wasn't taught that. I didn't know
Mm.
that until I got my third or fourth year into the business. Started realizing, hey, you pay down their principal a little bit, it just knocks down chunks of money off of your. So I just wanted to get people, teach people that stuff because some people will fall and most won't, but the ones who will, they're going to be benefiting in the long run because they're going to have 25, 23 years later, their house will be paid off instead of having 7 more years left.
Yeah, and I like how you say nobody really has taught you that. I think a lot of people look to you now as like influencer, but definitely in a different platform in putting the value add for real estate specifically. Because I think TikTok, I know you got good dance moves, but I think a lot of people think you got to get on TikTok to do some dancing or like whatever the thing is. But I mean, it was a pretty simple video that you did, and wasn't it just an overlay over the top on the as far as the information that's there,
Correct.
and that's it, right? And
Yep.
music.
It was just me looking at a computer, and it had on TikTok you hear that little like typing sound.
Yeah.
It was that sound, and it just laid out exactly what to do to pay off your house early, and it just went crazy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So what are you doing today to maintain the viewers and the followers and such?
That's the hard part is you got to keep on doing it, and I struggle with that because I do it myself. And right now we're kind of busy again. When the market kind of slowed down a little bit, that's when I was doing a lot of these. And now as everything's picked up, it's a little bit tougher. But I try to get myself to do 5-6 posts at least a month. I should be doing 3 or 4 a week, really, but it's just hard. But I need to maybe hire somebody to do that part of it for me.
Probably should.
I know.
Yeah.
If you know somebody, let me know.
Yeah.
I need to hire that out.
Social
But
media manager.
yeah.
Okay, if there's a social media manager out there who would like to help Jansen maintain and improve or increase his viewers on what, TikTok?
Yeah, TikTok and Instagram is where I struggle.
TikTok and
Them are the
Instagram. Make sure that you connect with him. I'll put his information at the end of this at the end of our podcast. But
Yeah, Facebook's for older people, so I can handle that. I just need a TikTok and Instagram.
that's hilarious. Well, I feel like you're pretty consistent though, because I know you do videos as well on your reels, right? You do produce videos and.
But you should do, they say, at least one a day, and I don't do that. I do maybe 1 or 2 a week.
Okay.
So I just need to get more consistent, correct.
I gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned, you didn't learn about the paying down your interest and such, and kids at your day or in your age maybe didn't know a lot about buying homes. You have actually, your children have actually went into purchasing homes, right?
Correct. Yes, my son who was 24, he's bought a home when he was 21.
Yeah.
My daughter, who was 28, she just bought her second home, and so she bought her first one about a year after she got home from college, and then she sold that one and just bought a new one about a year ago. I think she's been about a year now.
And was that because you influenced them to do that, or was it just, hey, I want to go buy a home? That's like the next thing to do in my life.
Yeah, I definitely pushed them. Like my daughter, when she got home from college, of course, she was a starving college student for 4 years, comes home, got a job, started making okay money. She's like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then she wanted to go get an apartment with friends. I said, if you become a renter, you'll always become a renter. You save that money. I forced her. I actually made her stay home and live with us. And I bribed her. And sure enough, 9 months later, she became a homeowner and got a renter to help pay her mortgage.
That's great.
And that's what I try to teach these kids. No one taught me that. My dad, he owned a couple houses over the years, but he was a construction worker.
Yeah.
So he didn't, to him, it wasn't a big deal. To me, it is, because I see the wealth that can be built over time of buying real estate and holding them and keeping them for rentals. So same thing with my 24-year-old, who's 24 now. When he was 21, he was actually an intern at the water district. I made him buy a house. And he wasn't sure if he wanted to do it either. And now he loves it. He got a good chunk of equity. If he wanted to sell, he could.
Yeah.
But I told him, if you go rent, you and your 2-3 buddies, you'll be a renter forever. Because one, you can't save money as much because you're a renter. You're paying all these bills still, even though it's not yours. At least when you own a house, you will pay the bills. They're your bills, and you're paying down the principal, and you're gaining the equity. Yeah. That's why landlords exist, because they want the renters to stay forever. Yeah. I love 10-year renters, 5-year renters.
Yeah. What do you think it was for your kids at that age to not have that level of commitment? I can't remember being 25, but and actually when I was that young, I also looked to purchase them, but I was in the industry. What do you think for your children or your kids, what was holding them back?
I don't think it was necessarily holding them back. It's just, like I said, we brought it up because we bought our first house, me and my wife, at the time it was my girlfriend. We bought our first house at 24.
Oh,
And at the time, I kind of see my brother-in-law. He bought a house a couple of years prior, and he did pretty good on it. I'm like, damn, we should do that instead of renting. We both had our own apartment, so we combined them, got rid of both of those. I lived with my dad, she lived with her mom, and we saved money to buy a house. And then, sure enough, that house, we sold that one 2 years later and made a good chunk of money and bought a big house, like our kind of our forever home, which it didn't end up being our forever home, but we thought it was. But I just explained that to my kids. If we just stayed renting apartments, we'd still be renting apartments.
yeah, yeah.
You
So
know?
you think it's a comfort level thing, and maybe do you feel like there's that level of commitment, like people feel, or even the fact that they probably didn't think they could do it.
Correct. People don't. It's not easy, but it's not that hard either.
Correct.
If you just keep your credit good, put some money in savings, stack up some money. There's a lot of down payment assistance programs. There's a lot that can help people. We get a seller to pay closing costs, so you come in with not a lot of money. It's just, well, now it's more because the sales prices are so much more, but it's just setting a goal and achieving it, going to it, keep on stacking till you get to that point. But if you have a goal, if you want to go buy cars and stereos instead of houses, so be it. Everybody's different, and that's the way I was when I was young. And at 23, 24, I'm like, dang, I'm just throwing this money away. I've been in 3 different apartments by then. And I said I could own I had 3 years already into a house.
Yeah.
So that's why we got motivated to do it.
That's good. Did you prepare your kids with credit and such, or teach them about credit at all? Because I think that's something, kids turn 18, if they go to college, there's all the vendors out there, credit card vendors that are like, have a free credit card, and they get started on the credit card problem, so to speak, and then rack up a bunch of charges. But did you help them in that way?
100%.
Yeah.
I filed BK like I was 21 years old.
Oh, wow.
So that's why it took me 3 years to buy a house. First, I started making good money. I went and bought a car, bought some quads. I actually bought a friend's quad on my name because he couldn't qualify for. And sure enough, a year later, that was a disaster. So absolutely, I teach my kids. My youngest, my 17-year-old, who just is becoming a senior today. She'll be a senior in high school this year coming up. I'm actually getting her a credit card this month to start establishing her credit. So when she comes out of college, 3, 4, 5 years from now, she's ready to go because she'll probably have a few student loans. She'll have 1 or 2 credit cards as long as she keeps being responsible and paying them down and keep them, just use them for emergencies and just to build credit, she'll be in good shape. And I did that with my older 2, and it worked out great.
That's awesome. Oh, so I did the same thing for my daughter, and that's going to be the plan also, is for her to prepare she actually was able to get 1 credit card on her own, which she was so excited about. She's like, well, what income do I put in? And I'm like, well, what income do you make?
0. Just put $3,000.
Exactly. But she got like a small credit card with like a $300 balance, which tells me that she's got credit now, right? But I put her on as an authorized user when she started driving. I don't think people understand that that's so important for kids to do. I mean, put them on a card that you're not actively using, and don't give them the card necessarily, right? But give them that ability to have good credit right when they turn 18.
Yeah, and then when you want to remove them, you just call and take them off it. It's easy, and it gives them established credit day one. As soon as that card hits their account on their credit, it looks like they've had that card for 3 or 4 years, and really they don't even know they have it sometimes.
Yes.
You know, but don't give them the card unless they're super responsible. But I think it's important for a kid, even like a $300 card, an emergency, right? They get stuck or something happens, they get a flat tire, they got to pay AAA or a tow guy to come pick them up. They got a $100 charge, they can charge it so they're not stuck. I think it's important to do that stuff for kids, and it teaches them responsibility. A lot, when I wouldn't probably have been the best at that age for a credit card, but again, my dad didn't teach me about credit. Yeah. He didn't have good credit at the time, so how's he going to teach me something? So I learned that when I became an adult, and once I started having kids, how I knew how important it was to have credit, so you could buy a house and get low interest rates on houses and cars. I taught my kids that from early, and just like you said, get them established young, so when they are ready to buy, it helps them tremendously because they get a lower rate, which we know saves you thousands a year, which over 30 years sometimes be $100,000 it will save you having, as opposed to somebody with a 580 or a 720. Yeah.
Well, and I love how you say, if you rent, you'll always be a renter. You start off renting, you'll always be a renter. I think it's really hard to shift that perspective, I guess. And it takes a lot of influence and courage to really jump out and do that. If you have family that does it, that's one thing. But if you don't have that, it's hard to be the first person in your family to be that generational breaker, the gap breaker for that.
Correct.
So you mentioned that your daughter bought her second home. So is she starting to build rental portfolios or?
No,
Okay.
it was actually a townhouse. She sold that one.
Okay.
She didn't want to be a renter, or a
Okay.
landlord, and she probably, that's probably stresses her out. But it was good. She bought the house in, I want to say 2021, sold it in 2020 or 2021, sold it in 2023, made a great chunk of money.
Nice.
I mean, I told you, you could probably never make this money again in your lifetime in 3 years off of equity.
Yeah.
That chance might never happen. So be careful. It makes you save that money,
Yeah.
what you need for your next house, put down, but the rest, put in the bank or a CD or whatever, because they're actually making you money now.
Yeah.
Put that somewhere you don't touch it so you can use it maybe down the road to buy another house.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did really well.
That's awesome.
And it was, like I said, she wanted to go get an apartment with 3 other friends.
Yeah.
As soon as she got home from college, within like 2 months, she was ready to move out. And I told her, you do that, it's just going to put you way far behind.
Yeah.
And I know you said earlier, give advice to a new real estate agent. What the advice I'd give for parents too, when they have these kids graduating, let them live at home as long as they can. And as long as they're saving money and being respectful, let them stay there so they can buy. Mm-hmm. Because if parents, you're 18, I got kicked out when I was 18, you're on your own. But again, it's so hard for them to save money because they got to pay full-time, rent, all the bills. If you let them stay home, it's a better chance they can save that money so they are not generational renters.
Yeah. That's great advice. I think not necessarily that parents don't do that, but I think that's they feel like, oh, well, you're 18 now, you need to go become an adult. But I think that actually prepares them better by one, budgeting aspect, but also the saving. And if you have a goal of home ownership for both sides, right? The goal for the parent is like, you're going to move out, but I want you to move out into an actual home that you own. And for the kid, you're going to move out, but I want you to be a homeowner, not a renter. So I think that's really important. I don't know that I think for me as a coming out of college, I always rented, and I don't know what broke that. Oh, you know what? My first home was actually a seller owned. So I'd seen it on the classifieds, like he was going to rent to own. Rent to own. And we just got to a point, which I didn't understand because I had bad credit when I was young. And that was the only way that I could get in. And eventually I got to a point where I could buy the house from him. And I literally bought the home. Actually, I think I decided when I was going to officially own the home, I decided I was going to sell it. I had no idea what I was doing, but I'd lived in the home for 2 years renting it, but I was on title. And so I went to sell it, and the buyer's agent was like, you don't really own this home yet. I'm like, yes, I do. I do own this home.
I'm on title.
Yeah. So that was kind of a cool, I tried to for sale by owner that as well, but that's what my first footsteps into owning a home was like a rent to own scenario, which I don't see those that much.
Yeah, today. Hardly ever. They're a little tricky actually.
Today.
Were you already in the business when you did that?
Yeah, I was lending. So and I think for me at the time, it was like, I had bad credit. I knew I had to fix my credit and I didn't have the money necessarily to fix the credit. And so I had moved out. I'd moved to Southern California, moved back, and just randomly went online to see classifieds. I don't even remember what it was for. And I see this rent to own. They were the best couple. I bought a little townhome. It was perfect for me. And then my boyfriend moved in, who's now my husband. And we stayed there for many years and then just sold it on our own. They were our lender.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was kind of a cool beginning for us. And same thing, I think I got $15,000 in equity from that and used that for my next home that I, repaired my credit and got myself all ready to do. But I think it wasn't that my parents didn't teach me to go out and do that, but I think it would have been a different, and I think it's just what they didn't know, right?
Correct.
They didn't go out and buy homes and things like that. I think that we had one home when we lived in as a family, but it wasn't like credit was ever really talked about growing up, and so you kind of learn the hard way. Yep. And now you instill these differences or the changes into your kids. Like for my daughter, it's, we set her up to have a good credit score coming right out of high school, really, just to make sure that she'd have opportunity and she knew how important credit is.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do the same thing with our kids. We have many conversations at our dinner table about credit, about relationships, about being parents, credit, buying houses, building wealth, IRAs,
Yeah, good.
just because we weren't taught that, and I didn't even start. I didn't have no 401k or nothing. I had a little bit of retirement to the labor's union, but my first house and we bought it and we sold 2 years later. We made a nice little chunk of money. I wish I'd have kept it, but I
Sure.
was like, damn, this is nice for 2 years. And we'd have never got that out of an apartment.
Yeah.
And then so now, with the 401ks and all the other retirement programs, we teach that to our kids because again, like neither us, me, or my wife were taught it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
kind of learned as we went, and we don't want our kids to make that mistake of leaving that money on the table. Get it while you can.
Yeah, you broke the cycle in your family, and you've changed the
Correct.
trajectory of your generations to come, right? Your kids, their kids, and things like that, which I think is pretty cool to think about, right? You being the first person in your family to do something like that. So we talk a little bit about you're also a real estate investor. Over the course of the years, you've picked up a few properties. You've also flipped, right? Fix and
Yeah.
flips.
I
Yeah.
did a few flips. I still occasionally look for one here and there. I'm not really big into flipping because it does take a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I really prefer to buy and hold.
Yeah.
But it has to be, again, the right perfect property for me. I'm getting a little older and I need to keep on building. It's like my retirement. So I want to keep on. I got to be real careful because I can't make a mistake. I don't want to. I've made a few mistakes, but I've also I've had more better than bad. But I have to be careful. But I still look for. I'd like to do a flip, maybe, possibly, but more. I'm really looking to do another buy and hold.
So what's your strategy around that when you say you're being very specific? What do you look for? Is it the rent versus mortgage, or you pay cash? What is?
Yes, the rent versus the mortgage is probably the biggest thing. And then I don't want a house that needs a lot of work. Flooring, carpet, paint, a few little repairs is fine. I don't want to buy a total fixer upper that you got to go dump 150 grand into. That's too much for me. It takes too much time. I want one that I can come and just put a paint job on it, maybe fix the yard up a little bit, maybe get some new appliances and put it up for rent really quick.
Is there an area in town that you stay focused on? Or
Yeah, I try to stay in the Northwest. I live in the Northwest of Tenny Hills. I try to stay out there because the properties are close. I'm kind of the guy that fixes something breaks for the
you're
most part.
also the handyman?
Yeah.
Like,
So,
wow.
but again, that's why I buy brand new appliances so I don't have no problems,
Okay.
hopefully for a few years. But if something does break, a sprinkler head or the sprinkler clock timing clock's not working, I go over there and fix it. If I have to go all the way to Henderson, drive 45 minutes home, it makes it a little bit tough. So I try to find properties within like 10, 15 minutes of me.
Okay.
If it's the right opportunity, I'll still buy a clear across town, but I prefer to have it somewhat in the direction where I live because it's easier for me.
I got you. Yeah. So my husband's the same way. So we also we used to fix and flip, and some of the capital gain issue also is there, but same thing, retirement standpoint, we want to be able to hold. And we did buy a home. So we always lived in Henderson, and we bought a home off Sky Canyon or Sky Point.
Yep.
And it was a rental because it was a great deal and whatever. It was so hard to get out there. It was
Correct.
Anytime something broke, middle of the night, whatever the case was, it was just 45-minute drive,
Mhm.
45-minute drive. Even with a warranty, you still want to check it out to see if it's something that he could fix or whatever. So we stay in our area as well.
Yeah, I just think it's easier. I mean, if you have 30 homes and you have a guy who takes care of it, a management company who takes care of everything, different story.
True.
But if you're obviously as an owner, you can self-manage your own properties.
Yeah.
Again, you try to find something that's not so far out for me anyway.
Yeah. Do you invest anywhere outside of Las Vegas, or is it all in
I
Vegas?
I do own one property in Washington, Cedar Woolley, Washington, where I'm
Okay.
from. I do own one. That one I do have management company for because it's 1,600 miles away. So I do have one for that, and it's been great. But for everything here, I do myself.
That's good. So what do you see as your retirement plan or exit strategy for real estate? Do you have that set yet?
I really don't. I'll probably do real estate forever, but I don't want to do it full time forever. Eventually, hopefully, I'm 48 now, maybe in 7 years from now, 8 years from now, 9 years. My wife can retire in 9 years. So maybe when she retires, I'll semi-retire. I got a nephew who's in the real estate. Maybe I'll pass my business off to him and work a deal with him.
Cool.
And then when I'm in town, I'll still do it myself. But when I'm on the road, hey, I can't show you houses, but I got a nephew who's a great agent. Let me have him help you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And work something out with him, something like that. But I think real estate I'll probably do forever.
Yeah.
Until I die.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be my calling, even though I keep saying same thing. I'm like 10 years is my my plan to go all in on it, and then I'll eventually move out of real estate, but not real estate, but mortgage side of it. Not necessarily move out, but it'll probably be more like, hey, go to the team, go to the team,
Correct.
go to the team. So, so tell me a little bit about Boxtown. I wanted to make sure that we brought up Boxtown because this was my husband and I had an opportunity to work with you guys. We also got to partner with the organization. So share with everybody what Boxtown is and then what's coming up for it.
Okay, so Boxtown is actually the neighborhood I grew up in when I moved to Vegas. When I first grade I moved here, that's where I lived in that neighborhood for 6 years. It's right across the street from Western High School. Better known that people mainly know used to be an old Dairy Queen. It's actually the neighborhood directly behind Dairy Queen. It's called Boxtown. I was told years ago it was built to house military people. So that's why all the houses look the same. That's how they got the name Boxtown. Some people call it College Park because all the streets are names of colleges like Stanford, Harvard, Vermont, Yale, Princeton. So, but we called it Boxtown. So what the event you're talking about is me and my 4 buddies who grew up over there. Well, 2 grew up right down the street, but we hung out in there in high school because that's where we lived. And so what we did is 4 years ago, this will be year 4, so 3.5 years ago on Thanksgiving, me and my buddies, we went out for like a pre-Thanksgiving drink and dinner, and we started talking about doing something for that neighborhood. It's not necessarily, I wouldn't say poverty, but it's it's probably a lower, I don't know if I want to say low income, but the people have what they have, but they don't have a whole lot of extra. You go in there and you can see. So we wanted to give back to the kids there. So what we did, we all started brainstorming that night. My one buddy kind of took the lead on and started contacting the city to get permits started. And then we hooked up with WestCare. They've helped a lot because they're professional nonprofits. So they had a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. So they help with the city permits, getting everything laid out because when you do a permit. So essentially what we did, we shut down the street. We blocked it off so no cars can come up. And then we got a DJ of Santa, toys, food trucks. And it's all for the neighborhood. The week before, we go and pass out flyers to the whole neighborhood. There's probably about 500, 400 houses and about 100 apartments in that little square of Boxtown. So we pass out flyers to the neighborhood, and everybody comes out. It's usually about 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas. The kids get a toy or two. There's food trucks. There's DJs. We were raffling off stuff. Everybody got a raffle ticket to come in, when they got at the door. And then we gave out some big prize, some TVs, Beats by Dre, headphones, just gift cards, stuff like that. You brought a gift card. So we reach out to these companies, other like escrow companies. UFC is a big donator. They donation of it. They brought, probably $20,000-$30,000 worth of clothes. Yeah. They bring every year. This is the 3rd year they did it with us. Hopefully they'll do it this year also. So and now that the kids get a handful of clothes too. They get a couple shirts, a pair of shoes, a toy from Santa, a meal, and the DJ plays music. And it's just kind of, we do it to kind of kick off Christmas, get the spirit going because, who doesn't like it, put a smile on a kid's face, So it's really awesome. This last year, then for some reason, out of the blue, the news showed up, but that was kind of cool. We had no idea they were coming. They showed up towards the end, but they showed up. But it's heartwarming that me and my buddies who've, we've made it out of there and we kind of give back to the community and maybe show these kids that maybe they can do it one day too. If it's maybe not there, go do something else good for the community, kind of like a pay it forward thing,
I love that. Yeah, just representative of your teddy bear heart that you have. I will tell you, the intent when my husband and I first showed up was really just to check it out, just to see what it was all about. And we ended up, the amount of people lining up before you even open not even gates, but before you even open the doors, like the area to have people come in. It was around the block for people. And the experience, even for myself being there, just watching how just wonderful it was for the kids to just experience that, right? You had some vendors in there giving away goodies. Then you gave, the Santa part, you had the UFC where they were getting clothes. That was amazing. And then all the raffles and everything and all the food trucks and such. It was just, you could see that you guys had poured your heart into it. I didn't realize it's fairly new, like 4 years into that. So is that the main event that you do once a year? It's the Christmas
Yeah.
that Christmas time?
Yeah. We just, like I said, we thought about doing one maybe there in the summer.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we do it yet. It's just, it takes a lot of moving parts. You've seen that, and it takes a lot of volunteers. So, I mean, we thought about trying to do one maybe like in early June, before it gets
After
too hot,
school?
do like a
Yeah.
block. We kind of call it a block party, the
Yeah.
Boxtown block party
Yeah.
for Christmas, but maybe do a summer one. But we haven't, it's just time we get done, and we start using probably like July, August, setting this up.
Right.
And then after, for the planning and all that, it's a lot. The city, oh, we got to adjust this plan. It's the same plan every year, but we got to make different adjustments. We're like, but it's a lot of work. But we thought about it. We haven't really kind of, if someone would take the lead on it, one of us would take the lead, we'd be all in. But we pretty much poured everything into this one for Christmas,
Well, I think it's great. I mean, how many people did you guys have? Did you get a final count?
Yeah, I think we had about 1,000 people show up.
Wow.
I think we figured out we gave out like 900 something meals. We had
Wow.
Buffalo Wild Wings showed up, donated a bunch of food. The other food trucks we actually paid them from sponsors. So, but Buffalo Wild Wings showed up and gave a bunch of food out. But the other ones were all paid sponsors. Hey, I'll sponsor this food truck. I'll sponsor that food truck. So I think it was 900 something meals. We gave out, I want to say it was like 700 something toys, and probably it was about $30,000 worth of clothes, plus the stuff that people that donated, the big stuff for the raffles.
Yeah.
There was kids, the little the cars, the electric cars, the kids ride on, the little ones.
Yeah.
Like that for a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
We gave out one of those. We gave
I
out 2 or
remember
3 big bikes.
Yeah.
A couple $100 gift cards. It was just awesome to do, and it's just a good time. It feels good to do it, and I've always wanted to do it, and I do some more stuff. I really don't talk about it, I just do it. These are the ones obviously we can't talk about a little bit more because we need help with it, because it's not cheap to get all the food trucks to show up and feed 200-300 people. So that's the reason why we talk about this one a little bit more for doing this stuff, besides the little stuff my wife and I do.
Well, and so how can somebody help? I know we donate, I think like a gift card or whatever, but there's so much more. And then about our time, obviously, but what's the best way for somebody to help?
And also you did a donation also to help with the food truck. So,
Okay.
that's what that went to. But
Gotcha. Okay.
Anybody who wants to get involved, it's all done through West Care. So it's a nonprofit. You'll get I forgot what the form is called. They give you for your tax write-off. Is it 1099? Yeah, they'll give you a 1099 so you can write it off. You get in touch with me or Shelly. West Care, if you call them, they'll know who it is. And we'll start we'll start giving out information probably late October once we have an actual date set with the city. Then we start going around to companies and asking them if they want to donate, whatever it is. If it's a dollar amount, they want to sponsor a food truck, whatever. And just, whoever, any company can do it. Friendly Ford did a lot this year. They're right across the street.
Yeah.
We had a big landscaping Finley Chevrolet donates a big amount of money, a good chunk of money. They sponsor a food truck every year. A couple different title companies have helped over the years.
Yeah.
Prosperity Lending has helped out. I'm trying to think who else. It's a bunch of companies. It's usually about 20 different companies help pay for everything. And then we also put some money of our own, us guys who live there. We buy some of the stuff to raffle off too. If we cover the food trucks, we use our money to buy some of the stuff for the raffle.
You also had like staff there. I don't know if it was the safety crew or you guys paid for that or volunteer. Like there were people that were, because it's open area, right? So there are people that were making sure that the traffic was directed in and out accordingly, but then that people weren't just walking right in from the sidelines or whatever, and then keeping everybody kind of safe and moving us through the line, so to speak. Were they paid for or volunteers?
So that was volunteers from West Care. They help a lot.
Okay.
They roll up with about 25 volunteers each year.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're a full go with us. They've been awesome. Like I said, they do all the financial part. They collect all the money, goes to their account. They write out the 1099s. They pay for the food trucks. They pay whatever needs to be paid. They pay for.
So it's facilitated. Yeah. Coming from sponsor side, volunteer side, it was an unbelievable event. And I love the story behind it. And I love that you're part of like the founding member, so to speak, of the organization, because I think you're teddy bear heart, whatever you want to call it. But definitely, if you want to participate in some way, whether it's in supporting the cause through donation, if it's even participating, volunteering, whatever it is, make sure that you reach out to Jansen or myself. So we are like wrapping up the tail end of our time here, is there anything you'd want to say, parting words, like what's next for you, Jansen Taylor, this year?
Just keep on going, keep on grinding.
Yeah.
It's just trust the process and go with it.
Yeah.
I think that's my parting words.
Trust the process and go with it. I
Yeah.
love it. Where can they connect with you? Definitely TikTok.
Yeah, it's my TikTok is Jansen the Realtor Taylor. My Instagram is Jansen the Realtor Taylor. My Facebook is Jansen Taylor. People call me JT, obviously, because it's
Yeah.
my initials. But if you want to connect me on any of those sites, I appreciate it. I'll even give you a follow back.
Love it.
And that's it. And if you want to buy a house or sell a house, you can Google my name. There, you'll find my phone number. It's my cell. Doesn't go to my office line. It goes to my cell phone. I get a lot of spam calls, but I answer them all because
Yeah, you
it could be
do.
you on the other line.
You do. You absolutely do. Love it. Thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
on the podcast. Thank you for your time, and truly thank you so much for your partnership and friendship. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you, Shelly. Thank you for having me too. I appreciate it.
Of course. All
This
right.
is not my gig. This is not my favorite thing to do. So I'm a little shy about it. I know people don't think that, but thank you. You made it more comfortable here.
Oh, good. Good.
So-
Well, thank you guys for joining the episode. Make sure again to tune in to Jansen, check him out. Make sure that you check out our next episode. Make sure that you share, that you save, and you subscribe to the channel. See you on the next one. Bye.